Hey friends, welcome to the Radical Radiance Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca George, and I am so excited about today's conversation. We welcome my husband, Dustin George, back to the show as we talk a little bit behind the scenes about his newest book, Before Dawn, Knowing God's Presence in the Dark Seasons of Life. If you want to hear a little bit about what it's been like to walk alongside one another as we've supported each other in both of our writing journeys, if you want to hear more about the book, about his heart for it, how he saw it kind of come together over the years, then this episode is for you. And I am so excited about the episodes we have to come. If you didn't listen to last week's episode where he read the introduction of the book, make sure you go listen to that and then look forward to the next 3 weeks as we talk about his chapter on hope, dependence, and perseverance. It's also not lost on me that our election falls here in the United States today as this episode is releasing. So no matter where you are or how you're feeling about what's going on in the world, we pray that these conversations are an encouragement to you. So help me welcome my husband, Dustin George, back to the show. Okay, friends. I am so excited about the next several weeks on the podcast. I have my husband back on the show. Dustin, welcome back.
Thank you.
I am so excited about our conversations. Many of the times that you have been on the podcast over the last 5 years, which that also sounds crazy that in January we'll celebrate 5 years of the podcast. Many of those times we have been talking to some of our heroes as they have released books. And we've both just been giddy at the opportunity to meet them. And I know listeners tell me all the time how much they love when you come on the podcast. And so I'm so excited that today and for the next 3 weeks, we are going to be talking about your book that recently released titled Before Dawn, Knowing God's Presence in the Dark Seasons of Life. And as your wife, I have just had the honor of getting to walk alongside you as you wrote the book, as you navigated through what is this book becoming and who is the reader, and you would come home and read me certain sections that you wrote. And so I have known Before Dawn for a long time, but it feels really special to get to introduce it to all the listeners of Radical Radiance. So I'm just so excited to get to do this over the next few weeks.
I am too.
It's going to be good. And so this week, we are just talking a little bit about the message of the book. So if you missed last week's episode, Dustin read the introduction of the book. So make sure you go tune into that episode. In fact, stop this one, go back and listen to that one, and you can get a little bit of a taste of his writing style, of the message of the book. We wanted to share that as a little sneak peek with you. And then today, we're just going to be talking a little bit behind the scenes, talking shop a little bit about the message of the book. And then we've picked 3 chapters that I personally felt would really encourage our listeners. We're going to be talking about hope next week. That's a chapter in the book, dependence, and then perseverance. So those are the 3 that we'll dig into in the weeks to come. But as we get started, I would love for you to share a little bit about how you kind of discovered the message of this book, this thread of knowing God's presence in the dark seasons of life. I know, creatively that there's a piece of it, like we had many titles before we landed on Before Dawn, but then also message-wise, this felt like such a right first book for you, and I just would love for listeners to hear a little bit about the story behind it.
Sure. Well, we were at a local farmer's market last week. We were there today as well, this day that we're recording, and there was one of the vendors there who was one of our friends, and we were talking about the book, and he said, "So where did this come from?" And I just pointed at myself and I said, "Through my own dark seasons." Really. And I can look back on just some, as we all can, some really hard seasons and some dark seasons and some seasons of uncertainty. And one of the ways that I tended to deal with that was to write. And so I think it was 2013 or so, if I'm not badly mistaken, which I've written ever since I was a child. I've written things and written poetry and written short stories, and I've written a number of things. But I started a blog, and it was really more I think for me than anyone else. And I just happen to let everyone else in on my thoughts. And so I just started writing. And then at some point in time, I would say probably about 7 years ago or so, I started seeing some themes that were emerging from blog post to blog post with no conscious attempt at connecting them myself, but it's just where my mind was going. And so I began to look over all of these things that I had written. I had notebooks full of things written in longhand, pencil scribblings and pen scribblings here and there, that I began to see, okay, so there are portions of these notes and there are blog posts themselves that fit into certain categories. There's a certain theme that's running through many of them. Not all. And of course, we've spoken of this. That's a lot of those things are probably the next book. And so I started looking at those threads and then just piecing them together, and then realized, okay, so I have some basic building blocks here. A lot more writing needed to be done, but I would say overall, these are the things that I think about a great deal. And then there's another component, and that other component is my almost 20 years now that I've been in full-time church ministry, with a church job as a pastor on staff or a lead pastor. And I started back in 2005 full-time, but I started in counseling ministry. And so I was walking with people through their darkest seasons. And then in pastoral ministry, there is a large component of that, I remember my mother one time, she said, you see people at their worst often. And so the things that I walk through, plus the things that I have learned helping others walk through those dark seasons and walking with them through the dark seasons, those two things together led to this little work here.
It's not a little work, first of all.
Well,
so don't call it little. But one of the things that I love seeing happen, I know I've seen it in some of my friends' books, and I remember thinking this when Do the Thing came out. I've thought about it already, about my next book that we'll release next April. And then I see it happen as people flip through the copy of Before Dawn that we're both kind of holding in our hands with mics in front of us right now. But over the course of finishing the book and editing through the book, you have allowed a lot of people to just take it and read it and come back and give feedback, and just friends and family over the last several months. And then I know as it comes out into the world, there's kind of another shift that happens when the world at large starts to read it. I've heard somebody use this phrase, and I wish I could attribute it to the right person, but I've heard it said that in the process of writing a book, for a long time, it's between you and God, right? And so in a sense, it's yours. The words are yours. But there becomes a moment when the words become ours. And I'm just really excited about that for this message, because there's such a need right now, I think, in our world, in our nation, in our culture, for encouragement in the areas that you provide encouragement in this message. And I thought about that as you were talking, I can't wait for this to become not just yours and God's anymore, but ours. I'm excited about that. I'm so proud of you.
If we're going to make it through the rest of this podcast without me tearing up and not being able to talk.
Sorry.
Thank you. And you humble me with that. But, yeah.
Okay, moving on.
All right.
So it's
going to be a very long podcast. There's going to be all sorts of sniffing. And
okay.
We're going to take a tear break.
We're going to take a tear breaker break. Okay, so as we think about kind of the theme of the book, the subtitle is Knowing God's Presence in the Dark Seasons of Life. And so why do you think it's so difficult for us to know his presence in our dark seasons of life? And maybe in that, what stands in the way oftentimes?
Great question. I think one thing is our focus, because I think that, think about it like this. And this is a very simple metaphor. Think about when you have a particularly sharp or a particularly nagging pain. I remember I'm thinking more specifically, I remember a time where I broke my foot, and then that led to me favoring one side, which led to a weakness in my back muscles on the other side. And then I immediately jumped back into my martial arts class and ended up impinging a nerve in my back, and it got worse. And there was this pain down my leg and in my lower back. And because it was always there for a few months, it's all I could think about.
Yeah.
And I think pain sometimes when we focus on it so narrowly, and I think that's what we default to.
Sure.
I think it's very easy in those moments to not see God, not because he's not there or not working, but because our focus is so consumed with the immediacy and the consistency of that pain. I also have seen in my own life, and I wrote about this in Before Dawn, and I've talked to others, and you find this throughout the Bible, that it seems sometimes when it is the most dark and things are so difficult, that it's very hard to know God's presence in the midst of that. And it seems as though our prayers are ineffective. It seems as though we can't see his plan in play. And it also seems as though he just may be silent in that time. And all of those things intended to draw us closer to him. But sometimes we can look at that absence. It's not really an absence. It's
our perceived absence.
Our perceived absence, a lack of our perceived presence of God at work can lead us to despair, or it can lead us to a place where we say, I don't see, I don't understand, I don't know all the details, but I'm going to trust regardless, that even in the midst of that darkness, I'm going to trust. So I think both of those, and probably many others, but the two that come to mind is that perception of God, and also our focus upon the pain to the exclusion of anything else during those times.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I wonder, as you think about the book, and this is kind of an unfair question to ask, but I've been asked it so many times about Do the Thing, and it was just interesting to think about. So I'm going to ask you, is there a chapter that stands out to you that as you were writing, you felt like God really personally used to encourage you in the process?
Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is on surrender.
Yep.
I think I've not done the word count. I think it is the longest chapter.
I can confirm.
And I have, because you did a lot of the work so far as formatting and typesetting some things. Yes, chapter 6, I know that I, for many years, probably undervalued the power of surrender. And I was reminded again as I wrote that chapter. That's probably one reason that it is as long as it is, because the more I began to look at it and write about it and consider it and think about it in my own life, I was reminded just how easy it is to slip out of that mindset of being surrendered.
Yeah.
Just surrendered to God's will, to surrender to his purpose and his plan, dying to self because I like me.
Yeah.
Some days. And we don't die to self easily.
Yeah.
And then through this process of writing this book, basically what you were saying earlier about, it's between you and God, and then it becomes something that it's a gift that you are sharing, and surrendering to God's plans and God's purposes for what he wants to do through what you've written and how he wants to use that in someone's life. It's a bit like a sermon in a way. Whenever I preach a sermon and I'm done, and there's that final amen at the end of the sermon, well, it's really the beginning of that sermon's work.
Sure.
And the process that God wants to use in someone's life to have that be a component. And it's out of my hands, but it belongs to him anyway. It always has been his. So that's where that's what I was reminded of.
I love that.
with chapter 6.
The Radical Radiance Podcast is brought to you this month by Christian Standard Bible. Looking for the perfect gift for a friend or family member? Treat them to the most important book they'll read all year. The Christian Standard Bible has options for everyone. With a Bible for every age and stage, they have you covered. For ages 4 through 8, there's the Easy for Me Bible. For ages 6 through 12, the Explorer Bible for kids. For ages 8 through 12, Defend Your Faith. For ages 12 through 17, the link is in the show notes. Now, back to the show. So something I love about this book is how it's formatted. So for listeners who don't already have a copy, number one, go to the show notes and grab the Amazon link and you can go grab your own copy of Before Dawn. But I love how at the end of all of the chapters, we've laid it out such that it's very journaler, small group, book club friendly. So there's 3 sections at the end of every chapter: ideas for consideration, questions for discussion, and scripture for reflection. And I have chapter 6 pulled up, the chapter we were just talking about. And at the end, I love that we did this. There are statements that you make throughout the chapter that might be good, will be good for readers to just come back to and think about, pray through, discuss with, let's say, their small group, if they're walking through it as a study. And so I'm just going to read the statements for chapter 6. So there's 3 of them. God does not say that all things are good. He says they work together for the ultimate good. That's number 1. Number 2, holiness must never be reduced to only that which we avoid, but must include what we pursue. That's so good. And then 3rd, your life will be spent fully on something. Your life will be a sacrifice. Make sure it is worthy of eternity. I love those 3 statements. And so that gives listeners a little bit of a taste of what they can expect in the book. And something else that I love that you included, this was a late add, but we added a couple of original poems that you have written over the years. And one of them comes at the end of chapter 6. So I'm so glad that you picked that one to kind of chat about, given that this was next. And at the end of chapter 6, we include a poem that is titled Yes. And I wanted you to read this for listeners as we continue the discussion here.
Sure. Okay. And again, as you mentioned, it's at the end of the chapter on surrender. And I remember writing this during one of my own dark seasons. And I wrote this as a prayer of surrender. So it's entitled Yes. I do not know what you have for me, Jesus, but you have my yes. I fought long to view my circumstances through a safe and constricted window with a too small view of your eternal grandeur. Handed my yes over to 1,000 other lesser things while holding back my sacrifice at your altar. Attempted to fit surrender into my life instead of fitting my life to surrender. Forgive me and accept my yes. Whatever you want, wherever you want it, and how you want to accomplish your plan. Place me in the middle of your will so that I will be out of your way. You have my yes. I give you my needs, dreams, and hopes, the well-worn desires and uncertain days and the unknown future. I trust that you see and know. I turn over the painful mistakes, the guilt-riddled sleepless nights, and the weight of past regret. Your grace is more than enough. I surrender every moment, every breath, every heartbeat to you, the one who gave them all. Yes, yes, yes. To all I know and all I know not, with a whole heart and without reservation, you have my yes. I will go where you send me, live and love and lead as you desire, and direct and empower your will alone. You have my yes. As Creator, you made me. As Redeemer, you bought me. As Lord, you own me. As Father, you love me. Being fashioned of clay, purchased by blood, designed for your service, and adopted as your child, you have my eternal yes.
I love that. I love the line that says, I attempted to fit surrender into my life instead of fitting my life to surrender. I think that's so descriptive of a lot of times how we view surrender incorrectly. That's so good. So good. I love that so much. So as we are coming to a close on this episode, I wonder, what is your greatest hope for the reader who picks up the book Before Dawn?
You and I had a talk. It was soon after I finished the very first manuscript, you and I went to dinner in Knoxville, downtown, and we were talking about how we believe that God wanted to use the book and get it out. And we had talked to a publisher, and we were talking about all sorts of things. And we got the word while we were there, that this probably, we didn't think it was gonna fly. And I think maybe it was a little bit later, but we were having this talk about timing, and we realized, okay, even if there were a yes that came, it would be over a year before the book saw light of day, and which is still the case. But I say all that to say, we were walking through that, and I just remember saying, there is someone out there right now who is sitting at a desk, or sitting on the edge of a bed, or sitting in their car in their driveway, and they are hanging their head, or they're putting their head in their hands, and they are saying, I don't know what to do next. I am really at the end of my rope. Things are way too hard for me to continue. And I remember getting so emotional when I was talking to you about this. And I just said, it's that person. That person needs what I needed then.
Yeah.
In my dark seasons. And this book is, I mentioned this in the book, this is the book that I needed.
Yeah.
It may not be the book that someone else needs. It may not be. But it's the book that I needed, and I trust that somebody else needs it. And so my hope and prayer for this book, and it has been through the whole writing of it, is that God will, by his sovereign working, whether it is through someone picking it up or listening to your podcast or buying it for a friend or a family member, or just happening across it, sitting on someone's coffee table who purchases it, my prayer is that God will get this into the hands of every single person who specifically needs this message at this time, that is found between those two covers.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I'm not really that concerned. My prayer is that it gets into the hands of the people that need this message as much as I needed it then.
Good. I love that. Well, speaking of, I want to give listeners information about how they can get in contact with you and grab a copy of the book. So I'm going to repeat the title of the book one more time. The full title is Before Dawn, Knowing God's Presence in the Dark Seasons of Life. It is available on Amazon now. By the time this comes out and listeners are listening to it, they can go grab a copy of it. And a couple other things I would share is on Instagram. That's probably the most active place. You are the most active online. And your handle is Dustin C. George. And you can also visit Dustin's website, newly created by yours truly, at www.dustingeorge.com. Anywhere else you want to share for listeners to go?
Well, that's pretty much it.
And we did a companion guide for the book.
Yes.
That will be available by the time this comes out as well. So if you go to Dustin's website, again, dustingeorge.com, you can download that for free. Our goal there was to create a really easy printable resource that you could use for a book club, a small group, a life group, whatever your church calls it. If you are wanting to walk through this message with a group of friends who might also be struggling as well, we wanted that to be as easy as possible for you. So there's the prompts at the end of the chapters pulled together in an easy format. And then we've written out a prayer for every chapter and have a place for prayer requests that you might have amongst your group as you read through the message. So please utilize that as well as you grab the book and share it with some of your friends. So I'm so excited, and I'm excited about this series that we have for the next several weeks. So again, if you've not listened to the last episode where Dustin read the introduction of Before Dawn, please go back and listen to that. And then for the next 3 weeks, we are going to be talking about 3 separate chapters in Before Dawn, starting with hope next week. So make sure and tune back in.
Look forward to it.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did. Go grab a copy of Before Dawn, Knowing God's Presence in the Dark Seasons of Life from Amazon today. Go down to the show notes if you want to grab the link. Make sure you follow Dustin on Instagram, and his website again is dustingeorge.com. And we will be back over the next 3 weeks to chat a little more specifically about a few chapters in Before Dawn. Next week is all about hope. We can't wait to chat with you then.